Good afternoon, everybody. And I want to share with you one of the most astonishing stories you'll ever hear in your life. This is independent online, and it was reported, as far as I can tell, it doesn't give a date. It says 21 hours ago, and I've just refreshed the page. So I'm looking down at my phone, as you've probably worked out already. 21 hours ago, which would make it yesterday evening, that is to say, the evening of Wednesday, the 7th of October. The headline of the story by the IOL reporter is, "Tobacco companies in South Africa may have aided," and then it uses that silly comma thing, so aided and or abetted illicit cigarette sales, report says. From Cape Town, a global initiative against transnational crime report has revealed that at least 66% of cigarettes earmarked as exports did not make it out of the country or did not reach their intended destination during the lockdown. Entitled "When the Smoke Clears," the report studied the effect the 5-month cigarette ban had on the country, when it was a hunting ground for illicit traders. Okay. It concluded that South African tobacco companies in South Africa may have been aiding and abetting an illicit global trade in these products that is not merely confined to Southern Africa. Tobacco companies repeatedly denied being behind the large number of cigarettes available on the flourishing black market, often at exorbitant prices. In May, the tobacco industry had reached an agreement with the government that it could continue to produce cigarettes, but only for export. While the sale, transport, and distribution of tobacco and related products, presumably domestically, some of the writing here is very, very poor, and I'm trying to compensate for it as I go along, were banned. Okay, so what's the story? According to a University of Cape Town research report, 93% of South Africa's smokers were buying illegal cigarettes. It revealed that illicit cigarette traders were making a killing on sales after the average price of some brands increased by 457% during the lockdown. Okay, so what it comes down to, this report alleges that South African tobacco manufacturers were permitted under the lockdown regulations to produce cigarettes for export and export only. However, the recorded amount of cigarettes exported was less than the amount of cigarettes produced, when in theory they should have been the same. Moreover, it goes on to say that the recorded amount of cigarettes imported by the recipient countries was even less again. So what the South African tobacco companies were doing was saying, okay, in terms of the regulations, we may export cigarettes. We're going to export, for argument's sake, 100 million cigarettes. They tell the government 100 million cigarettes, but only, let's say, 50 million cigarettes are recorded leaving South Africa, and only, say, 25 million cigarettes are recorded entering their destination countries, implying that, in fact, the manufacturers were finding ways to route those cigarettes, those supposed export cigarettes, to route them back into the domestic cigarette market. Now, what is fascinating about this story is that we heard it in May. I can't remember the exact date, and I don't want to quote the name of our member of the HQ of our strategic cluster group, Saatlander's strategic cluster group. He may not want his name mentioned, but we received there's a word in English called verisimilitude. What it means is when something appears to be true, when it has a ring of truth about it, when it kind of you know, when it resembles the truth, when it has some similarity to the truth. So obviously, we didn't know for sure that it was true, but the story was so plausible, so persuasive, so substantiated by good, solid facts that we believed it, but it wasn't something that we could talk about. We couldn't make videos on it, for instance. But isn't it interesting to discover 5 months later, June, July, August, September, October, 5 months later, that it was the case all along? Craziest thing you ever heard in your life. During the lockdown, there we were getting all of this information about government departments that were worried about violence, nationwide violence on June the 16th. Okay, that didn't pan out. It didn't transpire to be the case, but we had this information about the cigarettes, and we had other information about various things. It's just I don't know. Maybe I'm making more of it than I should, but it is absolutely fascinating to me to discover the truths of these events a long time later. It's like the fascination with, these Cold War files that get opened and you discover exactly what was going on, many years later. The CIA activities, which were absolutely denied at the time, for instance. And so for me, this is terribly fascinating to discover that these highly educated, well-informed, well-resourced think tanks and academic bodies are revealing that, in fact, that what we were hearing at the time about enormous frauds, really, occurring behind the scenes in the cigarette industry were taking place. Really, really, really fascinating to me. Anyway, everybody, thank you for listening to my little ramble. Please like this video if you liked it, or dislike it if you didn't like it. And share it if you think that there's anybody who can profit by it, perhaps a loved one. And subscribe to our channel. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.